right, I am here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm about to connect with Dave Nitzel and Dave Domzalski, the authors of Hospitality DNA. And the name Dave Domzalski sounds familiar is because he's also the author, co-author of The Bar Shift. So we had Dave Domzalski on the show a few months ago, a really amazing episode. And I didn't realize that when I got Dave on the show to discuss The Bar Shift, which is if you own a bar, you need to read this book, that they were in the process of publishing the Hospitality DNA. And this is a really amazing book. I super enjoyed reading it. Going through this book really reinforced a lot of what I've learned on the show. And really what they did with this book is they interviewed a bunch of successful bar owners across the country, and they basically look for commonalities. Like, what are these successful, award-winning leaders in the market have in common? What is the hospitality DNA? And they explore different things you need to be good at, like partnerships and relationships, finding mentors, culture, just getting knowledge. And they explore all these different things. They share stories along the way, and they talk about the commonalities of all these individuals. That's the AKA Hospitality DNA. So we're about to dive into it. I'm super psyched to be connecting with Dave and Dave. This is going to be good. Stick around. This episode is brought to you by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guests, David Nitzel and David Domzalski. Daves, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Absolutely.
Yes. And I know you two are unstoppable. I mean, I've already had the pleasure of talking to Dave Domzalski. We discussed the bar shift right here. If you own a bar, really if you own a restaurant too, but if you're serving alcohol, there's so many great tips in this book for just the details, the ins and outs of the business of running a bar. So absolutely recommend this book. But when I was interviewing Dave D about the bar shift, I had no idea that you guys had another one on the way. And you put that on my radar, and you're like, oh, it's like next month. And I was like, well, it looks like we'll be getting in touch real soon. So here we are. I drove down to Raleigh, North Carolina to connect with these guys. I have both Daves in front of me, and we're going to be talking about the Hospitality DNA right here. And I really loved what you guys did with this book.
Thank you.
Honestly, I really enjoyed it. It really reinforced a lot of what I've learned in over 1,000 episodes. And it just made me feel like, oh, maybe I am learning something. Like, I know a lot of this stuff, but like it's amazing advice, you know? And I think you guys definitely reinforced what I'm trying to do here at Restaurant Unstoppable. And I cannot wait to dive into these books, but let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
So I didn't know I had one. And I knew I was coming to do this podcast, full disclosure, and I watched Dave. So I was like, I need to have one of these. And I talked to Dave. I was like, Dave, do I have one? Like, what do you? So we kicked it around, and then it occurred to me. I was talking to my brother, and he said, hey, man, you taught me something 20 years ago that I use to this day. And he's a very, very successful. He's very successful in pharmaceuticals, let's say. And then he said, look, you've got it on your Facebook page. I was like, it's not. So I had to remind. I said, it goes like this. It says, look, treat people well, put in the effort, make good decisions. The rest will sort itself out. So if you do those three things, real simple, don't overthink it. It's not brain surgery, but it seems to be the case that successful people, reasonably successful, do those three things quite well.
And I don't know if you guys found this in your study, but there's no secrets. The things that make you successful in life are the things they teach you in kindergarten. And it's so true. And it's so infuriating because you're like, oh, I thought there was going to be like a trick, a secret, a big aha. It's like, no, show up, do the work, golden rule, you know, like it's that simple and that hard.
Say please and thank you.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Doing those things isn't easy. Showing up. Yeah, it's not easy. So a great way to get this thing started. And Dave Domzalski's episode was 973, and I dive into Dave's backstory a little bit in that episode, and it was only like 30 episodes ago. not that long ago. So if you guys did not catch that episode and you want to learn more about Dave Domzalski, check out that episode. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about Dave Nitzel's background, because this is the first time you got on the show. So where does it make sense to start sharing your story? Take us back to the beginning.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't want to bore the audience too much because my background really isn't in bars and restaurants and hospitality. I did work at Ponderosa for a year. I started as a dishwasher, but I was line cook at the end of that thing, helping them open up some. Nice. So I have a little restaurant experience, but I don't really lean on that much. So my background is mostly in Fortune 500 America. I mean, I rose through the ranks to the executive levels of big brand companies that we all know and love, places like UPS, Office Depot, Advance Auto Parts, to name names.
Great organizations.
Yeah, good organizations. So that's really where my background comes from. And I had a couple other pit stops along the way that were significant, but brands that we wouldn't know. But I spun out of Advanced Auto Parts, found myself wanting to do something different. I've got a little bit of a rebel spirit about me. I don't perfectly fit into corporate America, but I do love it. Like I did reasonably well for a long time. I was on future CEO teams and CEO leadership teams and that sort of thing in those organizations. So I was exposed to incredible talent, amazingly smart people. When I left that organization, I found myself a little bit, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know that I wanted to.
How long ago is this?
10 years, okay. 10, 12 years. So I knew I'd had it with, look, what grinds my gears is bad leadership. I have a real problem with it. I'm not good with a bad leader. I'll just tell you, I need good leadership. And when I have it, I'm an animal. And when I don't, I get a little rebellious, and that gets me in a bit of trouble. So that's what I found myself.
What makes a good leader in your opinion? I know that's one of the chapters of the book.
Yeah, self-awareness. Yeah. Like I just lock in on
emotional intelligence,
organizational self-awareness. So it's one thing.
What is organizational self-awareness?
So self-awareness, I'll answer the easy one. So self-awareness is about, hey, am I clear on my strengths and my weaknesses as a leader? Do I know who I am? Organizational self-awareness to me, which is, I'm just making that term up. I don't think it's an official term. But organizational self-awareness is to say, I understand the effect that my attitude, my behaviors have on others. The things that I do and say, how does it impact the organization, and how is it defining the culture? How are my behaviors defining the culture that's surrounding?
Behavior is culture.
Absolutely.
So what you're doing says volumes more about what you say you are. It's how you show up. It's what you say. It's organizational, or would you say organizational self-awareness?
Organizational self-awareness, yeah. So you're right, and I am a bit of a culture wonk. So there are lots of cultures.
Walk away, man. I love this stuff.
Yeah, so look, what'll happen, and Will and I were just talking about this earlier. We're doing Podcastalooza here, so there's a few different podcasters, and there's a bunch of awesome people being interviewed.
Got to get that word out. This great book.
Yeah. So we were just talking about what culture means in a business, and what happens in large organizations is it'll become a project. The culture project, it'll get kicked over to the HR team. And your senior execs at HR will, do their big brain stuff and come up with what sounds like really good for the organization. You can't argue with these things. Here's our 4 pillars, and I'm a 4 pillars guy. I talk about it. But the thing is, those 4 pillars have to really matter. And they really have to be a reflection, not of the HR department. They need to be a reflection of the most senior leader, because that's where accountability for culture begins and ends. So
you talk about that in the book too, that behind every great, and this is another lesson that you guys reinforced, is I like to say all the time, behind every great restaurant's a great person. Mm-hmm. And that culture is usually just like that person on paper. Right. So
what you have to be, if we digress for a minute, what you have to be careful of there is scaling a cult of personality. What I see a lot of in this industry is a lot of cults of personality. Cults of personality don't scale, and what happens if something happens, if that person for any reason has to exit the business, now what?
Yeah, it's a people-dependent organization, not a system-dependent organization.
Exactly right.
And I feel like we're getting a little bit ahead of.
Yeah, we are. We're diving right in. Let's go.
But there's some truth to that, and it's weird because behind every great organization is a great person, but is that person so unique that there's no one else on the face of the planet that can be like them? Because like you said, then you're going to have trouble scaling.
Right.
Or do you have enough self-awareness to know what really matters to you, and do you use those few things and you lean into your core focus, the things that are, you know, like, I don't know, super distilled? You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So you have to be willing to give it away to an extent. So you have to be able to define what matters most to you in your organization. Write it down. So it's a great exercise for folks, if you know, those who are listening right now, write down the things that you think most exemplify what matters the most in your business. 4 things, say. Write them down. Then go do that exact same exercise with all the leadership group, your servers, your staff, whoever you want, as many people as you can, and say, what are the 4 things that matter the most in this organization? Then see if you have a match. If you have a match, you probably have the makings of a pretty strong culture. You may not have defined it, but it's being displayed. It's on display every day, and people are acting in concert with one another in the venue, which is scalable, and that is what you want. And that is, if you need to remove yourself from the business for any reason, including scaling it, or you just want to grow, you need time to think, you can do it with confidence, and you need to be able to do that. What a lot of people do, well, we'll go back. Let me clean up that I didn't do the career arc. So I'll work my way
sorry.
back.
I have it bookmarked in my mind.
Okay, so all right, so we'll bookmark that.
10 years ago.
So the career arc, yeah. So I ended up, I don't have original thoughts. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to be my own man. I wanted to own my own business, but I'm like, I don't have anything. Like, what do I have to offer? So I was like, well, no. The answer to that was nothing. And I started looking at franchises. Like, there's 3 things you don't ever want to type into a web browser, by the way.
Franchise?
Franchise is one of the 3.
What's the other 2?
I'll let you guess. What do you?
I mean, we know our audience.
we know. All right, yeah.
They can handle it.
So you don't want to type in insurance,
right?
Franchise, or sex. Those are the 3 things you
I
don't
knew it
want
was
to type
sex
into a
related,
web
but I was
browser.
like, is it penis?
Yeah.
Is it, which one is it?
Yeah. So I got hit with a guy who was basically a franchise broker. And I was putting him off. I didn't want to be. I'm like, leave me alone. And finally, one guy wore me down. I liked him, and he's like, look, do this personality assessment, which got me. I love that stuff, right? So something else I nerd out on.
I'm trying to get the predictive index people on the show.
I love that stuff,
yeah,
man.
they're based in
Love
Westwood or Westbrook, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And that's like right around the corner from me. And I was like, oh, I got to get these guys.
Yeah,
on
you
the
should.
show.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That's great content. No, good.
I digress.
So anyway, they presented me, one of them was presenting me with this franchise opportunity to do Barmetrix. And I'm like, what's Barmetrix? I don't know. And they're like, well, and this is not Barmetrix. This is the representative. These guys help failing bars and restaurants, which isn't the case, right? And I'm like, I don't know anything about that. Like, I'm not interested. Meanwhile, my 21-year-old son overheard the conversation, and I shot down everything that they presented me. I'm like, no, hard no. Talk to me in a week. And he comes over and he goes, hey. He goes, the bar thing. Tell me more about that bar thing. And, at the time, he was just a gamer in his room going nowhere fast. And he lit up. And he's like, hey, bar rescue, which isn't us, right? But he's like, have you ever seen the show? I'm like, I have no idea what that is. So he goes into his room and he starts playing me the YouTube or something of bar rescue. And he's like, inventory, you are supply chain. This is sweet spot for you. You'd be great at this.
Thank you, son.
And I'm like, hey,
Thanks, Alex.
Look, yeah, Alex. Thanks, Alex. So I was like, you really think so? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, would you do it with me? Because I'd never seen him have this kind of energy.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to do it together? He goes, I'd do that. I'm like, call him back. Let's go. Like, just done. 5 days later, I had bought 2 franchises. I own 4 now. And I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed being in this industry. And I realize I'm an outsider, and I don't try to be. I've been in it 10 years. I try to be a wry observer. I'm trying my best to help wherever I can with the books, the coaching.
But that's also one of the biggest lessons I've learned too, is that you don't need to have a background in hospitality to be a good fit for the world of hospitality. Like, I think some of the people that you profiled in your book got late starts.
A few,
yeah. I can't remember.
Jackson Cannon did.
Right. Yeah. It really just comes down to, do you have like the DNA, right?
Yeah.
And that pun wasn't intended.
Yeah. I don't try to be I don't pretend to be anything I'm not. I bet I turn down 90% of the consulting things that are asked of us. And what I basically do is I leverage the Barmetrix business to give me reoccurring income on consulting. What sucks about consulting is chasing the next gig. And that's true whether you're Accenture, EY, McKinsey. I've worked with all the big houses once upon a time, or whether you're somebody in between jobs as a bartender or a general manager and you're like, look, I don't know where my next gig is, but I want to use what I know to help people. Chasing that next job sucks.
Yeah.
And so for us, I'm able to not have to do that. And what that then frees me up to do, I'm kind of answering the career in a real lumpy way.
No, it's good.
So we jumped in 10 years later. The business does great. Some of my guys are here. I can rely on them to do that work. I can sort of hover over it and help people. And then the question is, well, how can I help? Like, what have I learned in 10 years? And how can I start to apply the things that are relevant from corporate America that don't...
Business is business at the end of the day.
But
there's a few unique things about the service industry or the hospitality industry, but at the end of the day, it's relationships.
Yeah, it is. But I would argue that this is unique. I was blown away when I came into this and saw how much lands on the head of a pin for a bar and restaurant owner, everything. So like I said, you go to corporate America, you have a head of HR, you got a head of finance, you have controllers, you have marketing people, you have ops folks, supply chain folks, you have real estate, you have all this core expertise their job is to support the store. That's their whole mission in life. All that talent resides on the head of a pin called the bar and restaurant owner.
Right.
And they need to be an expert at all these things, and that's not possible.
I think it's changing. I think I agree with that last statement that it's not possible to be the best today and be by yourself.
On all those things, right.
Yeah,
right.
And the expectation's only getting higher. As technology evolves and as technology becomes more readily accessible to smaller operators and technology in all different verticals, marketing, operations, it's so hard to be on top of everything and to be good at everything, right?
Yeah.
I think that you really need partners, and you have a great chapter in this book about partnerships too.
Yeah.
Which I was really happy to see that chapter. So still getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
But anything else we haven't tapped into as far as your come up story that we should know before we transition to the book?
Not that I can think of. Not that anyone would care about.
Yeah. So so you guys write the bar shift. We might as well keep it chronological. What was that, 2016? How long ago?
Sounds about right. Yeah. No. 2018.
18.
Yep, 18.
What was the goal? I mean, we already talked a little bit about the bar shift, a lot about the bar shift in episode 976, but
short
sorry,
version.
973.
Short version, he's the impetus for all this. So he calls me and says, hey, I want to do a 12 tips for Christmas for our clients. We do this thing. You in? I was like, yeah, I can do that. I used to write blogs for Sean, and it's easy. And so what are we going to write about? And we said, okay, let's each come up with our list. And when we put it together, we pared it down to 41 things. Actually, I think it was 43, but 2 were repetitive. And he said, well, hey, you want to write a book? And I said yes after some thought.
People keep telling me I need to write a book, but I don't know. I don't know how you guys do it. I just don't have the desire.
The first
it's
one
so
was
much
easy because it was just it was a brain dump.
Yeah.
Like we had this knowledge. It was stuff we knew. Any Barmetrix franchisee could have written that book.
Yeah.
Any one of us. And frankly, most operators could have written that book. It's just nice and packaged. Like you said, it's great tips. And we have clients who are like, oh, we keep on the back shelf when we need something. I got guys who are like, yeah, whenever I go to the bathroom, I read a chapter. It's perfect length. And that was the idea. And that was it. It's just that simple. It's 41 critical lessons for management that, you shouldn't have to learn the hard way. And if you're stuck somewhere, maybe this will jog your memory and stuff you already know.
And you guys got great feedback from the book. You got some acclaim, didn't you? What was
We just hit bestseller status on that one in 4 countries and 8 categories.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So how did that lead into hospitality DNA?
Well,
yeah. All right.
Again, he's the impetus for all this. Dave's the driver.
I'm a bit, so like when you go into your personality studies and that sort of thing. So one of the categories that I fall into is achiever. Yeah. So what that kind of means is I'm a checklist guy. So every day I'm the kind of person who I want to look back on my day and say, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, or I'm not happy. Like during COVID, the worst feeling for me, and when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next career-wise, was waking up every day and no one needed me. Right. And there was nothing for me to do. I mean, how many times can I cut the grass? Like I have nothing to do. And I feel I'm like, I need something to do. So COVID hit, and Dave, I was fairly proud. Dave and I were very out in front on COVID, on business coaching. We sort of read the tea leaves right, and we did a mini sort. It wasn't a podcast, but it was something that we did
series.
With another group, and we were just giving, hey, here's how to prepare for what seems to be coming down the pike, and how to take advantage of COVID. So instead of everyone going into a shell, let's reinvent ourselves. Here's the opportunity to do all these things. So we were doing that. Well, then COVID hit, and the shutdown happened, and it was regionally. It was affected differently by region, by city, by state, by country. And if you're a support network for bars and restaurants, it was almost worse than being bars and restaurants, because some bars and restaurants started up, but they still didn't need us.
Right.
There was nothing for us to do.
Right.
And so I need something to do every day. And I said, hey, Dave, let's write a second book. Like I have some neat ideas on a second book. And Dave's
launching a second business with my wife.
Yeah, so Dave's solution during COVID was he was opening up a whole nother
big deal. We had
bunch of
investors.
businesses.
It was massive.
Yeah, and so I was like, and he was like, I can't do it. And so the thing between our partnership is Dave's the insider.
Yeah.
Dave's the one who knows. He can keep me in check. That's not applicable. That doesn't work. That language doesn't work. People in our industry won't understand that. I'm getting better at it. I mean, I've been here 10 years, but still, he's the insider. So I don't really want to write a book without Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, and that's kind of the fun of it.
Yeah,
is I also like to have a team and a partner. I don't want to do it on my own. And so we made a deal. I said, look, I'll get started without you, and you can catch up, because he wanted to do it. He just was out of position to do it. And I knew this book was going to take a bit. So this wasn't something we were going to do in 6 months or a year. This was a 3-year project. So it started during COVID. I'm giving you the long answer.
No, it's good. This is a 2-hour-long podcast.
Yeah, all right. So that's how it got started. And then the original idea of the book, we talk about this a little, isn't what the book ended up being. So it was a true research project. We didn't start with an answer and then reverse engineer it and that sort of thing.
And that's one of the things that really resonate with me about the book too, because I look at Restaurant Unstoppable as kind of, as it evolves, it's becoming a research project.
Yeah.
It's this is my research.
Yeah.
You know, this conversation is my research. Things that you mentioned in this interview will be my clue to go, follow up and just kind of let the content steer the content.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what a big difference. So between the bar shift and this one, I said the bar shift was a brain dump, right? We just cranked it out. Once we started writing something, we didn't really have to rewrite. This was work. It was fun work, like he said. The collaboration was intense, awesome. We would do an interview and talk for 2 hours afterwards. Like, what did we learn? What do we got here? I think it was about number 4, maybe 3 or 4, where we realized the first idea wouldn't work. Actually, he realized the first idea wouldn't work. We have something else here. And this started to take shape and then just kept evolving through. And then we both were jucking ideas in, like, once we had it rolling. But we did the interviews. He would scratch down as much as he could right after the interview. As he said, I had to catch up. So he would say, Dave, you owe me a chapter.
Did you record these interviews?
Yeah, we have them. We have almost all of them. There's 2 we lost. I'm pissed. Actually, one of them I'm really pissed about because I kind of needed it. So the second year, that was the first year. First year was interviews and trying to figure it out. Second year was me catching up and writing, him rewriting, and us realizing that to do these people justice, we needed help. Now, we wanted to have somebody help us write it, which is what we thought we were buying when we paid for the service we did. To do this, it turns out they actually they're more so big into like helping you monetize your book when you're done, but they also do some sort of, they drove us to write better effectively is what they did. They're like, they didn't say, hey, here's how this should be. They say, you don't like this way, go fix it. We're like, oh, more work for us. Woo. Yeah. And so years 2 and 3 were rewriting, reorganizing, figuring out the order of everything, getting it right, doing everybody justice. And I can tell you the difference between the 2 books. The Bar Shift, it's fine. It's not a literary masterpiece. Hospitality DNA, like I was rereading it on the plane, and I don't want to sound arrogant or egotistical, but I was actually really proud of what we wrote.
You should be.
I'm like, holy, this feels professional. It feels very different. It's cogent. It goes through clearly. The writing's good. It's to the point. It gets where it needs to be. And that's a 3-year project. So the difference between the 2 is that. So if you're not in for that, for 3 years of just going at it, and making it as good as it can be, Don't write a book. If that sounds fun to you, do it.
Yeah, and that's why people are like, "Why haven't you written a book?"
That's to answer your question from earlier.
Yeah, I'm like, I have no desire.
It's tough,
to do
man.
that.
It's not.
I have a podcast. Is that not enough? I'm recording everything. It's all there. Listen, you write. You listen to my podcast, then you write the book.
Yeah.
But so, what was it supposed to be originally?
Customer service.
The original, a little. I'll give you more since we're long.
Yeah.
So the longer version of the answer is, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a hospitality consultant in Australia, and I was kicking around what to do next, and we were exploring a bunch of different ideas. And then at that time, a book wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
And I said, maybe I'll just write a second book. And he goes, that'd be great. You should. And we started having a book conversation. He goes, all the books in Australia are American books, and we have to interpret American business culture and then apply it to what we do here. And that I didn't like that. For some reason, I was like, that sucks. I don't like that idea. And then I read some of the reviews on the Bar Shift, and they were great reviews, like 5 stars, thrilled. But then they said, yeah, but it's from an American perspective. And I thought, okay, hospitality is really is about taking care of people and different cultures, and how do we maybe write a business book that includes the world? It was just a really, and I love big ideas like that, and I love travel, and I've had some of the most special experiences from people from all over the world, and there was some element of that I wanted to capture. I didn't quite know exactly what it was, so originally I had the idea that we would sort of do a tour of the world and see how concepts were created unique to the cultures that you are in. A culture on culture, like what's our business culture, but then what's the actual culture of the region or area or country in which I live, and how do I plan around that? And the idea just didn't work. Like no one could answer the question, so it was a bad question to ask.
Well, so ironically, I think Dave and I spoke about this. Dave Domzalski and I spoke about this when if I ever did something else besides this podcast, it would be probably a video, like a vlog video documentary of traveling in different cultures and learning about what hospitality means to that culture.
Yeah.
But like, how does it manifest? Like, for example, the Japanese, it's all about predicting needs.
Yeah.
You don't ever let your guests ask for anything, or you don't ask them if they need something. You just bring it. You use an example of the book where it's like one of the oldest, like
the Pashtun.
Yes, that was really cool. What was that? I can't remember the details of it.
So they take hospitality to what we would consider to be an extreme. There's a movie, Dave remembers the name of it. I think
it's the Lone Survivor.
The Lone Survivor.
Or book.
Where if you're a visitor, if they bring you into their home, you are now their honored guest, and they will die for you.
Right.
They will sacrifice their lives, their family, their whole safety because you are their guest now. Yeah. And that's how they view, like in a very simplistic term, that's how they view hospitality.
Where is this in the world?
This is in the Middle East, Afghanistan.
Afghanistan.
Well, it reminds me. That sounds familiar because I think it's Pakistani.
Yeah.
Similar.
One of those. I think it's one of those. Somebody I had on the show, but they said that like the way that they manifest hospitality is whatever the best. Like if it comes down to food, if there's like, say it's like a barbecue, like the guest would get the burnt ends.
Yeah,
you know, like because like
the good
like the cool thing. Yeah, like whatever the best cut is, whatever the best of the plate is, the guest gets that. And like, I think it would be so cool just to go travel the country and try to find like how does hospitality manifest, but then take it further and say, why did we develop these traits as human beings? Why are we hospitable?
Yeah.
From like an anthropological standpoint. I think it's because of like, and this kind of gets into like the geeky things like leadership, being seen. I think one of the reasons why you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like right above like security, is like, do you see me? And I think one of the like you wouldn't think it would be like that significant of a thing, but I think because we're tribal, because you need if you took one of us and you put us out into the jungle, we wouldn't survive. Same's probably true 10,000 years ago. You might have a better chance, but you probably wouldn't survive for long.
Survival.
You'd run into another tribe and they'd take you out. Yeah. Like you needed to have a tribe. Right. It was a part of your existence, your survival. So what are you doing? And you see this in chimps. Like if they kill a monkey, they hand out parts of the monkey to the people that they have the strongest relationships
Yeah.
with, because they know they need those allies. And I think it's that simple. And and I think that's why we're generous. That's why we're warm, because when I, when you kill the mammoth and I don't have any food, you're going to remember that when I killed the mammoth, I gave you some of
Yeah,
mine.
right. I
Right.
gave you some on my mammoth.
What's going through your mind as I'm sharing
I
this?
think that's right.
I
That
know.
was the original book. So that's
Yeah.
what we were going for,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
What is hospitality?
So here's
If you guys ever want to take another crack at it and want to bring in a third,
No, I'm
I'm
good.
not a Dave.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I mean, so here's exactly what happened, and this is how we ended up with this. So we would ask that question, but it was people didn't have that answer readily available.
I don't think
Right?
people
That's
think
not-
about it.
Yeah, they
No,
don't.
they
But
don't.
if you
don't.
dive into anthropology and
Yeah.
human behavior and evolutionary biology and evolutionary
Yeah.
psychology, holy shit, there's something there.
Which
Yeah.
is that's true, but that wasn't.
That's not the direction
we
were
didn't hit the
taking.
crossroads.
Yeah.
So we were looking for this crossroads between the interviews of Okay, I need to back up one more step.
Yeah, get a little closer to the mic too.
Yeah,
Don't
Oh,
be
sorry.
afraid.
All right, sorry.
Pull
I got to
it
back
in.
up one more step.
Pull it closer. There you go.
The backing up one more step is the book inspiration for me was Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Yeah.
That book really imprinted on me around 2000. The idea of that book. Have you read Good to Great?
Yes,
Okay.
it was years ago.
Years
but
ago,
I
right?
know.
So
Great book.
he researched the best of the best within publicly traded companies.
Fortune 500, right?
Yep, Fortune
Yeah.
500. And he went to the 1% of the 1%ers and said, what do they do different? And then he wrote what I think is just a wonderful piece of work about what those leaders look like and how those businesses behaved. And that always stuck with me. So that was a little bit, I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if we could write the hospitality sort of independent bar and restaurant version of a Good to Great, but we don't have the data. Right? We have no access to any data to do that. So what's our data point? We have to have some data point. So the data point was industry award winners. The industry is really good at recognizing itself, peer-to-peer and all these different things. So we thought, okay, that is a data point. So what if we go around, and so the idea isn't that we are necessarily celebrating award winners, we're learning from them. So we went around and we targeted people all over the world. So
This
it had
is
to
why
be,
I love the book, by the way, because I hate to keep on bringing it back to Restaurant Unstoppable, but like that's exactly what I'm doing
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
and I'm,
yeah.
and I'm
You just wrote a
saying it
book
like in a
about it.
good
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like when I first started, I didn't know who was who, so I literally went to the Michelin star winners and the James Beard winners. I then noticed that those companies or not those companies, those award, I don't know, they're biased and they only reward people for. I mean, I get it that it's about
bias
the
in whole
food.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also just pretentious. It's like a club.
yeah, it's a
you
little
know?
who you know.
Yeah, and like it's like, well, a lot of these, like not every restaurant, like we reward these restaurants, and not every restaurant can operate like that and be profitable.
Right.
If we were just a bunch of James Beard and Michelin star restaurants, I just don't know how we can make that fiscally, I don't know, possible. Like, what about the people who are more fiscally geared? And I think fiscal responsibility gives you the power to take care of people. And there's something there's something that's romantic about that too. I'm totally cutting you off. Sorry.
No, it's all right. And look, that's all legit. That's the book. And it's also important to note, we have bartenders in here. We don't just have owners. So there's bartenders in here that are global award-winning bartenders who are just amazing. There's brand ambassadors in there. Angus Winchester wrote a glorious foreword for the book that we had to constantly look at the foreword and go, oh my God, like the foreword
He
is
said
still
the book was
bar.
amazing.
Oh, he
before the
did.
book, he was like, "This book is great. You had to buy it." We're like, "We haven't written it."
Yeah,
yet."
yeah.
Oh,
It's like,
God, we
but
better
so
get this right.
we really owe Angus for amazing setup.
Oh,
so we
yeah.
wanted to, we wanted a really interesting cross section of not just you can tell we didn't go in. I think award-winning chefs get a lot of play in this industry. TV shows everywhere about food, and we love that. That's great. But there's another side of the business. So we put a little bit in the book. There's a little bit more
It's
emphasis
all
on the.
consumer-facing stuff.
It is.
There's nothing out there for the restaurant operator.
We were going more for the restaurant operator, and
Yeah.
when we're a little bit more, we hew a little bit to the bar side, probably
Yeah.
the nature of the business and
Yeah,
who we have access to. It's kind of in my mantra, take care of people, treat them well. Who's your group of friends? And that's what you do every week. You say, who should I talk to? That's what we did with the book. Who do we talk to? And we just followed that and trusted it. And so what happened, we go back to the failed original concept. People just didn't have that answer top of mind.
Yeah.
So what they would start to do, their default would be,
This is what I did.
This is what I did, and let me tell you what I believe in.
Yeah.
And so, like, Dave was spot on. The first 4 or so, we were like, oh, that was the best.
Yep.
And can you believe? We were like, can you believe? And this was, and then after that, we would say, oh man, what a bummer. We didn't get anything out of that interview. Like none of what we needed. But yet, so we did that about 4 times, and I remember I called Dave and I said, Dave, I don't think this is a them problem. I think this is an us problem, and we're being handed gold here.
Yeah,
let's just mine it.
And that's one of the things that when you have a motive or like an opinion or a belief or like an objective, that starts to steer the ship. Mm-hmm. But when you just shut that off and you just listen, and you're, I say guest, but you're, I guess you would call them your interviewee, they'll steer you in the direction that feels right to them.
Yeah, that happened a lot. There were multiple times where we went in like, oh, we're going to get something about data information from this guy, and then they would say 3 things, and the conversation would just
because you like read an article about somebody who was writing an article about data, and they're forcing people into the mold of their agenda. Then you assume that person's an expert on data, and this is not the case.
The most frustrating piece in that, in a weird way, is that so many of these people exemplified way more of the topics that they existed in the book, and so we had to figure out where do we put them, how many chapters do we put them in, how do we put them in, because there's people in here who could have been an example for every single one of the chapters.
How many people did you total interview?
I want to say it's 27. It's between 27 and 30, but I think it's 27.
We feature more. There's a few people that are featured who are part of a story who are in there. So there's probably 30 to 40 people that we talk about. I think we interviewed 28.
You should know that number.
28, I think, is the number.
We're just here for the journey, man.
Yeah. But the cream of the crop type individual. 100%. You guys really shot for the stars and the people you're talking about.
I mean, look, it was an exercise in excellence. We weren't. We were pursuing what does it mean. Look, Jim Collins book was my inspiration. So I was in pursuit of excellence. What does excellence look like, really? Yeah. And so in the interviews, you would get excerpts of people who would just hit on something, be like, I can't believe, like the Inception archetype to me, blew me out of the water. Blew me out of the water. I thought that was. Now other people might hear that and go, Dave, look, I've understood that for years. That's amateur. For me, blew me away, and I feel like I've been exposed to some smart marketing stuff.
Yeah, I think we should take our first break to thank our sponsors. When we come back, we'll start really unpackaging what the final book came out, how it was structured, and maybe start diving into some of these nuggets that you guys picked up. Cool. We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no strings attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below. In the timeline, when we left off, you talked to us about what you wanted the book to be, and then what it became.
And how it evolved. Yeah.
But I don't think we really got into exactly like what the end product was. So before we dive into the chapters, and we already kind of pulled out some nuggets, what is the end product?
So the way this ends up being presented to the reader is it's not a book of stories. That's a miss. Yeah, no. I don't find a ton of value in a book of stories. So we did these interviews, and we were and this is the beginning. Before we got into the whole science-y DNA concept, we were sort of looking for superpowers or traits. So think about superheroes. All have a unique power. Some can fly, some can swim, right? Some have a green ring, whatever it is, right? So we were sort of looking for these things that we considered to be a superpower that we ended up calling building blocks. What's your superpower was a question, and people would say, I don't have one, and then they would go on to basically.
I call that the it factor. See, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah. We do. So then it was our mission to find it. So we would look for this thing that really made them special, that differentiated them. What's then the story that connects that talent or power to a business outcome? And then how do we teach off of that? So each chapter maybe it has more than one. Some have more than one.
Yep.
But it features usually a person or two, maybe 3, a story or 2, not long. Some are longer than others, but for the most part, it's a vignette. Yeah. But then Dave and I have a responsibility as coaches we have to coach out on this. So, hey, great story, great lesson. I get what you're saying. Thanks for introducing me to this person, but so what? Well, we have to answer that so what. And that so is here's how now you take this that they shared with us and apply it to your business. And we owed that to the reader. That's the idea. So those are the first 15 or 16, whatever it is, chapters.
Yeah, it's about 15.
But our work isn't done yet. We haven't defined hospitality DNA yet. So that was...
You start the book off talking about the helix, the hospitality DNA.
Right. That was a decision made towards the end. And actually, two things happened towards the end of writing everything. One was reorganizing the chapters in a way that made sense. And we were looking at it, and I realized that if you treated all the people in the book as one person, you effectively have here is one person's journey from birth or whatever, from early days through to excellence in the industry. So once I caught that, we reorganized it and pulled it that way. And the other thing that happened was actually a long debate between us and the publishing company we worked with was, do we give the reader the DNA traits in the beginning and give them that, so hey, you can read this book through this lens, or do we leave it as a reveal at the end? And so we made the decision very consciously, and much like it was the last huge conversation we had, and I think we did it right because it allows the reader to go through the book understanding what the point of these stories is and what ties them together. So that's why that decision was made there.
And then the last 2 chapters.
So it's the last 5 chapters are the helix point. So so you have the first 15, 16 chapters.
No, good, because there's the connecting chapters in the middle as well, the mentorship, partnership.
Yeah, however many.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So you have the first set of chapters, which are the stories and the lessons. But we have to string that together to define hospitality DNA. So we say, here's all these stories and all these neat lessons and all these superpowers, or what we call building blocks. Now, what do all these people have in common? Because that's really the end goal. We're trying to define hospitality DNA.
And that's the helix.
That's the helix.
Yeah.
And so we came upon the 5 things that we said, you know what? These are the 5 traits that bind all these people together.
Can I say them?
Yes, of course you can. Yeah.
So we have number 1 is humble nature. Number 2 is explorer's pursuit. Number 3 is a lifetime of experience. Number 4 is indomitable spirit. What does indomitable mean?
Indomitable is inability to be defeated.
Unstoppable.
Yeah.
It's unstoppable.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. Lots of parallels here.
Indomitable spirit. Extraordinary culture. Or extraordinary culture.
Yeah.
With the
Can
90s
you say
X
those
extreme.
words the same way? Extraordinary or
Extraordinary.
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 Yeah,
I know, it's a funky word.
Yeah.
I'm not the best reader. I'm not going to lie.
It's all good.
There's a reason why I talk.
Yeah, that's great.
We play to our strengths.
Yeah. So those are the 5. I mean, I don't know if it's worth. Do you want to go through all those?
You can do whatever you want. It's your show.
Yeah.
Well, I also don't want to give away your book.
Give it away.
No, man, there's plenty to read. There's plenty to read after this.
Yeah.
So the first 5. So humble nature, like what?
Humble nature was a fun one. It was one of the 2 that Dave and I weren't necessarily expecting, and we had to debate. He had one, I had one. Mine was humble nature. Once it didn't take long to convince because it became kind of obvious, but it wasn't something we were looking for. And funny enough, as we're talking to people, there's a lot of industry people who are like, yeah, of course. But humble nature came out of a conversation somewhere through about halfway through the interviews where I was just like realizing these people almost never attribute their success to personal. There's no arrogance coming out. They might be proud of what they've created. They might have a lot to say about how awesome what they've created is, but it always came with an asterisk of I could not do this without my team.
Well, kind of
every time.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that people who are great leaders tend to be really great self-awareness, their vision. This is what's possible. Let's go do this. But they're very self-aware, and they know that they're not good in the dirt. All the little technical things that you need to be good at to be successful.
They surround themselves with great people.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that's exactly how I feel with the people that I work with right now too. Like it's like the people, like my editors, and like I'm a speedboat going like 60 miles an hour on top of the water, and I'm not good at slowing down and getting in the submarine and with the arms and pulling things apart, which is probably why I haven't written a book yet.
Right.
Yeah,
and
go ahead, Dave.
The other side of the humble nature, it's not to be confused with meekness or shrinking down. There's almost a contradictory element to it that we've been discussing a lot lately, because you also see these people. If you know the people in the book, you'll see them out there peacocking sometimes, right? They'll get up there and they'll celebrate themselves but they've earned that, first off, and secondly, there is nothing that says you can't be humble and yet still, again, back to what I said a minute ago, celebrate what you've created, your team, and who you are. Like you worked hard to get here. Because every single day, they are more than willing, actually by habit, by who they are, by their core being, they give, right? They just naturally give to others. It's part of who they are, and there's no more humbleness and humility than I see than in my experience, than going to a bar. The owner's there, and he's making you a drink, or she's running to grab you something, because that's part of who they are. So when the day is done, that's what we're talking about with the humble nature. And when they're on that stage accepting that award and saying, I'm proud of what we have here, this is awesome, yay us. Well, hell yeah, you've earned that.
Yeah.
And there's no reason that those two things can't exist in the same space.
Yeah. Nitzel, what do you want to say? You wanted to contribute something.
No, that was it. I was just gonna jump in and say, humble nature doesn't mean aw shucks, kick rocks.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. It's okay to be proud, and you can't decouple ego and success.
Yeah.
That's a lie. So these folks have the self-awareness and a certain level of appreciation and humility about how tough this is, how quick success can go away, and how reliant they are upon others to execute on their vision. They were very dialed into that, and it did take a minute. I don't know why that one should have been more obvious. So this was an iterative process. Dave and I didn't agree on everything, and we would have unbelievably long conversations, borderline arguments about how we read the outcome. Like, you may have looked at the same amount of data, and you may have come to different conclusions. It was a research project.
Yeah.
So, we're looking at data and research and trying to decide, hey, in the end, what are we going to tell people that hospitality DNA is?
Yeah.
We got to get that right. Like, we can't be wrong on this.
At the very least, we have to believe it, and it has to be a good, solid foundation.
And we want the data to be our guide, but then we also have to be able to coach it. So it's not enough for us just to define what it is, but we need to be able to explain it and then coach it. And how do you apply this to your business? That's what we do. So there's a lot a lot of work went into figuring it all out.
So that was humble nature, explorer's pursuit.
Yeah, this was fun, right? This was really neat.
This is where we argued.
So yeah, we did. This one took a bit because it was hard to get your mind around this.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy figuring this out.
We're still figuring it out. Like,
yeah, we are still figuring it out.
I was like, oh shit, that's got it.
Yeah. I mean, I worry sometimes about coming on a podcast with the likes of you, and you're asking me a question I don't know the answer to exactly, because how much have we been pressure tested?
That's how I feel about everybody I have on the show. I'm just a guy who asks questions, and I'm talking to these people who are super successful.
Yeah. So. Look, it makes me nervous. So Explorer's Pursuit was really cool. So again, these interviews would start. I'm going to answer. Go ahead and not kill two birds with one stone here. Okay,
Yeah.
Lifetime experience, which is the L, and Explorer's Pursuit. Most stories started out with when I was 14. I started as a dishwasher. When I was 8, my dad made me pour him cocktails and spears.
When I was 3, my parents opened a restaurant.
When I was 3, my dad lost his bar. Was
so
taken away from me.
if you're listening to the audio version of this, Dave Domzalski pointed at me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Because I was 3 when my parents opened a restaurant.
Right. That's how most of the story started. So the L is lifetime experience. It took no talent for us to figure that out. Okay, that was easy. So we'll just cover the L. The E was similar though. It would start out. I started out at a certain age, but then I traveled. I explored, which is, it's in a way, it's so obvious in the end. It's the essence of hospitality, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yes, and they have almost to a person, had what would you say, unquenchable thirst to go out and learn and explore and put themselves in uncomfortable situations, and they don't back away from it. They embrace it.
Yeah.
And in that, they would learn like crazy because you're, like you said, your senses are heightened. You're outside your tribe. So it's danger, right? Danger's up.
Well, so
senses
much.
are heightened. And I'm absorbing more information than what I would if I was just walking to work the same path I've walked a million times. But now I'm in a foreign land, experiencing foreign food, foreign people, foreign cultures. They absorb these things. All right, so that's part one. But that's just the harvest. They come back and they use that experience to somehow that manifests itself again in a venue in some way that becomes guest facing, which is so cool. We have Devender. So Devender is a bartender at the Mandarin in Hong Kong. Unbelievable story. His story starts in India, and he winds his way through, and he ends up an award-winning bartender in Hong Kong. Incredible story.
Oh yeah.
And he was in a competition in Sweden, of all places, where they're going foraging.
India, Sweden.
Yeah,
First
he's
time
about-
he ever did it. He'd never done this. He had no idea what he was getting into.
I'm thinking about Drew Tales of the Cocktail.
Yeah, Neil Bodenheimer.
Neil Boden.
Uh-huh.
Neil Bodenheimer.
Neil
And,
was doing. Yeah,
past guest on the show. I've had him on the show too.
I saw that one.
He's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Neil's great.
But he's got a great story too.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
He's in there. Great.
God.
Very similar, right? Exploring with his brother.
Southeast Asia.
Yeah, crazy. So, Devendra goes and finds a flower and twigs and sticks and flowers, and he's making cocktails and spirits out of this, wins this huge
first
competition.
place. Yeah.
But then he's taken that back now to somewhere like the Mandarin Hotel, and he's giving that to guests as an experience that he went and harvested in the forests of Sweden.
Yeah.
All right, so that sounds crazy. That's not crazy. And the people in this book are doing this sort of thing on
Right.
the regular. So we started discovering that, and I said, Dave, it's right in our face. Like, everyone started young. Everyone's traveling like crazy. It makes total sense when you think about the essence of hospitality is travel in a way, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
Dude,
Going
you just hit a
somewhere to
vein.
travel. Yeah.
Because I would love to see a future. If I'm ever president, this is what I'm going to go for.
Okay, I'm in.
A hospitality-driven economy.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
How would that work?
Just this idea that, well, first of all, like, I think it's a core of who we are and how we're meant to be on this planet. Like, we're meant to take care of people. We're meant to provide. But instead of bringing the food to the people, I think you should bring the people to the food. I don't know if it's like this idea of globalism, of like the fact that we can get bananas and pineapples and like not think
Crazy.
twice about
It's
it.
insane.
Like we're
Yeah.
entitled to that.
Yeah.
And that where these bananas and pineapples are coming from,
Like
are
halfway across the world.
are those people being taken care of?
Probably not.
Like, is
The
it?
story of quinoa is
Yeah,
horrifying.
and you're taking their
Yeah.
you're taking their natural resources, and you're pulling it out where you could use that natural resource to pull people in.
Yeah.
And I think in the direction
there's-
we're going, but like hospitality-driven economy, like you want our fucking apples or pineapples and bananas, come get them.
There are some countries figuring this out too. They're creating hospitality-based tourism, and this is, I don't think it's that new, but I'm coming across more articles, and I could not give you any examples. I'm sorry, but where they are featuring, here's our food, here's what we do, here's how we do food, and they bring people
But you
in.
look at where we're going with the evolution of transportation, how we're getting way better, dude. If we start using some nuclear power, if we get over our fears of nuclear, like we can move people around pretty efficiently.
You know, there's a new jet fuel that actually is carbon neutral. It actually it doesn't produce carbon dioxide. These scientists, I want to say probably Sweden, it's somewhere in Europe, have figured out, and they're figuring out how to mass produce.
We know how the technology's there. It's just a matter of getting people to
stuff.
adopt.
Access to.
Yeah, and I feel like you take the money from these first world countries, and you literally move the people into these other countries, and you inject that's how globalism should work in my mind. Not pull the food away from you don't pull the natural resources away, and I feel like we're just raping these countries.
Look, our message is go visit, go
Yeah.
get uncomfortable,
Yeah.
go visit,
And-
go explore. I mean, that's what. So, it's not our message; it's what we were taught. It's what we
yeah.
learned. That's the message: is go do these things, and whether you're in hospitality or not, you come back richer.
Yeah.
Having gone, I mean, when I go, I still talk to this day. I talk in the book about the experience at curfew in Copenhagen.
He talks about it. He talked about it last
Humberto
night.
and Antonio.
Again. Yeah,
One
all the time.
night, life-changing night. I mean, just unbelievable hospitality. You look at Humberto and Antonio, Antonio isn't there anymore, but at that time he was. These are guys from Portugal who made their way to Scotland, who are now running a world-class bar in Copenhagen that had a couple Americans come in for a night. They got referenced to them by a guy from England.
When Restaurant Unstoppable goes international, you're the first call.
Oh, dude, you got you.
Let's go.
Now, with all this, there's a really important concept here that I'll make it really quick so we can tie it up. It's not just that they travel. It's how they do it and the intent with which they do it. And I would encourage anybody listening to this, inside or outside of the industry, next time you take a trip to anywhere and you have to eat. You have to eat. You have to. You're probably going to drink. A lot of people do. And if you don't, whatever.
You know how bummed out you keep making.
What?
I was so excited to come down here, and like I saw the bars that you guys are working with.
Yes.
I love bourbon, dude.
Oh my
I'm
God.
so sorry.
And with Dram and
The stomach kept him away last night,
Oh
guys.
my God.
Oh, look, the
So-
cocktails here last
Oh,
night.
phenomenal.
Here, dude, I was just like,
Phenomenal.
son of a bitch.
Sorry,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's that intent. It's that intent of driving there with a purpose to experience something new and exposing yourself to. It makes it changes your. Go sit on a beach, have a pina colada, fine. Go find that hole in the wall that everybody says is the best. And sit there and find out why, experience why. It changes your
Go
perspective.
find a friend who lives in that place and sleep on their couch.
Yeah.
And let them show you around.
Yeah,
Right.
work a reference. If you're
Yeah.
work a
Make-
reference.
Bartenders love to talk and love to communicate. Everybody likes to talk about their experience. Ask them what's the bartenders anywhere you go in any city. If you ask them where's the best spots to go in this city for cocktails, okay, got that one. For a good time, for great conversation, they're gonna know those answers. They're gonna. You always have a friend,
So-
and they will tell you.
This manifests a lot in the show. When I'm constantly telling people, like, if you are passionate about the hospitality industry, or you think you want to be in the hospitality industry, don't go to college. I believe this. Spend that money on travel and getting perspective. And if you are good at this work, you will have a job waiting for you everywhere you go.
Yeah,
You can pay for your education through travel, and you can get paid to get educated.
Yeah.
There is a part in the book I felt obligated to write, which was there's a little bit in there about what we didn't find, so what wasn't true, and one of them was education didn't play a role.
It doesn't.
Now that doesn't mean to be fair, it doesn't hurt.
No.
It just didn't. We didn't find it as a trend in industry award.
I did see
winners.
one trend in my research that if you are older, like 23 plus, and you're going to school the second time, you know what I'm saying? Like older
With a purpose.
relative to when you go to school. If you've worked in the industry and you're older and you go to culinary school, they get so much out of
Culinary
that.
school is different. I feel it's different. So hospitality school versus culinary are very, very different.
Yeah.
And this is an experience-based explanation. My wife has a master's in hospitality. And she worked in a hotel for 30 years. I said, how often did you use that degree? She said, never.
Yeah.
Never
But
use that degree once.
then-
Now, culinary, man, these people will teach you how to do stuff with food that you're not going to learn.
But it's still just a foundation. I think the most important thing is if you show up and you hustle and bust your ass, those professors are going to see that and they're going to open doors for you. They will.
Truly, yeah, they could.
And that's where I think the benefit is
Yeah,
it's
the
getting
relationships.
because it's literally like, and I had Gavin Kaysen on the show the other day. He spent the majority of his career working for Daniel Boulud, right? He worked at a hotel as a chef, and then he went to go work for Daniel Boulud, and now he owns his own Soignier restaurant group in Minneapolis. 8 years he spent with Daniel Boulud. The point I'm trying to make is that it's all about who you surround yourself with. And if you can impress a professor, and that professor will get you into the doors that will slingshot your career.
I would put a little underline on that. You need to know who you're going to study with and where their connections
Be intentional.
lie.
Yeah.
Do it with intent. Don't just go and say, I hope that one of these people does. We have Kat who intentionally went after a mentorship with, I am blanking on the name.
She went to London to.
Marion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the guy said, if you ever
Marion
want
Beck.
a job, come back.
Marion Beck.
Marion Beck.
Yeah. So the general manager, right? If you ever want a job, she made that connection outside of hospitality school. Could have been made inside, but again, you have to know. And she knew who he was. She knew she wanted to get to him. She took the opportunity when it presented himself. She moved with intent. I think you're right. You can do that inside of the hospitality, the schooling.
I mean, that's the
experience,
only
but
time I've seen education playing a role is
Yeah.
if you
There's the
take
connection.
advantage of it.
That's right.
That's kind
Like-
of true in a lot of.
But most young
fields.
people don't. 18 years old, you're trying to get laid and you're trying to have a good time. You're
Good
most
for you,
18.
too.
Like it takes getting a lot of that out of your system and knowing, and going into culinary school with a lot of intentionality.
Yeah.
But I do agree with that it's totally not necessary.
and it's not going to replace experience.
No.
It just isn't. Not in our findings. It's just not going to, because that experience is critical, and that goes to that lifetime experience.
Lifetime
point.
experience
Well, it's
was
also
massive.
when I hear lifetime experience, I think of the 10,000
Yes.
hour rule.
Yep.
Because you mentioned
Yep.
that in the book,
Yes.
right? But it's like you're getting a head start. So you're like, if you grew up in a restaurant, by the time you're like, looking for a job, like I remember this, my parents had their restaurant from the time I was 3 to 13. And I remember going to work at other restaurants and they're like, how old are you? Like, I'm 16. They're like, how do you know what you're doing? I'm like, I grew up in a restaurant, know, and it's just like that unfair advantage of just putting the time in.
Yeah.
So like
It's not unfair.
well, it's not,
You busted your ass.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
It's
like,
a competitive advantage.
competitive
is what it
advantage.
is.
it's just time
Sure.
in. You're getting a head start.
Sure.
You're getting
Yeah.
a 10-year head start.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, lifetime experience was easy. That one took us no time to find. We went like, oh boy, almost everyone except Jackson, who in a way did start early, but he detoured, but he was always like vibing off the bar and restaurant industry. He's a fun story.
He played music not to play music, but to get into the bars, he used that as a gateway to be in that
He's
space.
up in New Hampshire too, Boston.
Yeah. Boston.
Garrett Harker was his business partner.
Yeah.
I had Garrett on the show. A lot of those people. I haven't had him on the show though, so we should probably
He's a good one. He's like a Hemingway guy.
Yeah.
Like you got to be on your game when you talk to him. He's sharp.
Make sure my stomach's doing better.
Yeah, he's
Heal
awesome.
up.
So I think we can wrap up lifetime experience.
Yeah.
Indomitable spirit.
Indomitable spirit. Yeah. It's funny, that one comes from the idea came from Taekwondo. Big part of Dave's life, Dave's family, and we use that as the overlay to the concept, which is this is a group of people who have it in them, the mental stamina and physical stamina to be unstoppable. Because we're here. We're going to use that, and we could have easily said unstoppable, right?
I would have been okay with it.
I know, right? Yeah, we can. It's synonymous.
I would have been like, yes.
Yeah.
You have people
It doesn't
that
fit in the helix. We couldn't figure out how to make it worse. We had to use
helix.
Spirit. But you can't get them down, right? They'll have their bad days and good, but they just don't give up. They keep
Buoyancy.
going until it's done. Huh?
Buoyancy.
Buoyancy.
Yeah, it just keeps showing up. That's one of my core values.
You got to face down a lot of challenges in this industry.
Brutal.
I mean, look, I'm in awe of that. Like I said before, I look at what these bar owners have to do. You have to crush every night. Every day is a new day. Every experience is a new experience. You're subject to Yelp reviews and Google reviews, and you have a turnstile of sorts with staff, which we hope to sort of forestall some of that in the book. But this is tough. Real estate, economy, COVID, turnover, pricing, costs, online reviews. Look, so here's the thing about it. You can't just overcome it. That's not enough. Because people have wherewithal to overcome that grit. People have grit. The folks that in my opinion, the folks that we interviewed overcame it with a smile. Mm-hmm. They overcame it unscorned.
Have we used the word optimism yet?
I don't know that I would call them optimists.
No,
I don't think that fits.
Sultry guys and gals in this thing, like kind of.
They're gritty, but they love giving to people. They get their juice out of giving experiences to others, and they love that.
The approval.
And they deal with what comes with it. They don't love the fact that they come with it, and I wouldn't call them eternal optimists. In fact, I have cocktails last night with
Pessimists.
I
think there's good balance between pessimism and optimism.
There's some healthy pessimism and
the
skeptical
optimism,
optimism.
Realism, maybe.
Yeah, like the optimism helps you show up. The pessimism helps you challenge.
Yeah.
What you're being told.
Yeah.
Challenge the status quo, open mind.
Yeah.
A lot of rebels in the industry. A lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's why you get along so good, Nitzel.
Nitzel's, he's a shoo-in. Easy fit.
Any other thoughts around Indomitable Spirit before
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Extraordinary culture.
I'm deferring right here to my co-author. This is his special sauce.
Well, culture is the rock upon which we build our business. So most of these folks have well-defined cultures, and they aren't leading a cult of personality. So they can be removed from their business, which propels them and allows them to go multiply and do other things.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, it's
fine. I was
fine.
going to say, I can't help but think of Coyote Ugly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Lil,
She's
right?
amazing.
Was she the culture?
She's
She wasn't. She was Brand or Clarity. Was she the Clarity example?
She was in. Was she?
She was in Clarity.
Yes, she was in Clarity with Jack.
We're talking about those are the titles of the chapters.
Those are the building blocks.
She was Clarity. Chapter 3.
Yep.
Yeah. So if we talk about Lil for a minute, which is awesome, Lil's really cool.
Amazing
Look,
person.
Lil's someone I didn't know if we could get Lil for the book.
She's kind of
Okay.
celebrity status, huh?
Yeah. And so we were connected on LinkedIn. That's the extent I knew Lil, was we were LinkedIn connected. So I sent her a note. I took a flyer. And I was like, hey, Lil, I'm writing a book and I'd like you to be in it. Like, no response. Because why would she? So I came back at it. I was like, hey, look, Lil,
Still writing the book.
I'm still writing the book and you still haven't responded, right? Like, no response. I'm like, Lil, I'm relentless. This isn't going to stop.
Do you want this to stop?
Yeah, right, yeah. And she responded. She goes, let's do it. And she has been an absolute
Amazing
joy and a great advocate. So look,
Yeah.
here's what I think is cool about Lil, and this is the business nerd coming out in me. And this may not resonate with everyone in hospitality and how people position hospitality. Hospitality, in my mind, isn't about what you want to give, but it's about what someone wants to receive. And I think a lot of times people who struggle in hospitality are focused on what their wants and needs are. So if you look at that failure rate, I think that there's more likely than not categories of people that fall into the category of, man, I love bourbon. I want to open a bourbon bar. I love to cook barbecue. I want to open up a barbecue restaurant. And I say singularly, that is a horrible reason to open a bar or restaurant. You're asking to be part of that fail rate.
However.
So in the case of someone like Lil, if you peeled this back, and we do a little bit of this in the book, and I said, hey, I got an idea for a bar. All right, you with me? Yeah, all right, here's my idea. We're not going to do any draft beer. Your first response, well, okay.
Sure. Draft is painful.
We're not going to do cocktails. Cocktails suck. We're not going to do
Oh,
cocktails.
that's hard to build.
It seems odd, though, doesn't it? No cocktails? We're not going to do that.
I can see it.
No food. We're not going to
Wait,
do
what?
food for these people either. So
That's okay.
no food. All right. So no food, no cocktails, no beer. I'm just going to do bottled beer, and we'll do shots.
Well, but I mean, if you're not going to have food, you got to at least give people water.
I'll tell you what, we'll do water, but if you ask for it, we're going to just spray in the face.
That sounds like the
That's a
one
hard
job
way to
I'd be
drink
able
water.
to get
Right.
as a bartender.
So
Shots
here's
and beer
Lil.
game.
Imagine trying to finance that. Imagine saying that before you know the end of the story, and you're at the beginning of the story, and Lil says, here's how I'm going to line this up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to recruit these uber talented gals to come in and entertain the hell out of people. And we get into more detail. We don't have to drain the whole story, but I'm going to figure out how to build teams of talented people. And if you went into her bars Friday, Saturday, like you couldn't get in, and they're spraying people in the face. The offering is minimal offering, and they made movies and TV shows about this. Okay, she became celebrity status because she gave people what they wanted.
Yep.
What do they want?
They wanted to be entertained.
They wanted that experience.
Yeah.
And she figured that out.
I think she was smart by keeping it simple because now you didn't need to hire bartenders. You needed to hire
entertainers.
showmen.
Yeah,
exactly.
Singers, dancers, people who engage.
I can open a beer, I can pour a shot, but can I keep the people engaged?
Yeah. Huge level of. If you go into one, the crowd is engaged. Like it's almost they're all for. That's what people want. There was so she met an unmet need in the market.
Right.
What is the market asking you to provide, and can you provide that at an exceptional level?
Yeah, and this thought that's been coming through my head over and over again. When I started my podcast, I was trying to crack the codes. Like, what are similar to you? Like, what's the commonality? Like, what is what is the secret? And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that there literally is no right way to do it. It's kind of to say what you said. It's like, is it the right way for you in your unique situation and at this unique point in time, given the unique, like you also talk about the superhuman, like your superpowers, right? Like the way that one person opens their restaurant. Listen, like I could never be Lil. I'm not cute enough. I'm not like, you know what I mean? Like I can't dance in a bar. Like, like she was that, like, she knows her strengths. She knows her strengths. She knows what she's doing. She's playing to her strengths. And that's not going to be the same for everybody.
Right.
So what works for one person in the restaurant industry isn't going to work for another, necessarily work the same way. You've got to play to your strengths. So it's a matter of learning all the ways.
Yeah.
And then picking the ways that make the most sense for you.
And what does the market want?
And what does the
market want? What if you can tap into an unmet need in a market?
Right.
you can survive an awful bumpy road because you're providing something that can't be otherwise found, which is what she did. She was providing something that just wasn't available. So if you went through New York City, you can find plenty of cocktail bars. There's a lot of that. There was nothing like Lil's place.
Yeah.
And so there's a line outside the door. Understanding that, so we tell the story in the book where I was trying to be a dream killer. I don't know if you got to that bit. Yeah. And I sent someone from Atlanta to Charlotte to go to the Crunkleton because he wanted to open up. This person wanted to open a bar with no partners,
they got super
no knowledge.
Inspired.
Yeah. The Crunkleton crushed so hard that he had the time of his life, and he was like more determined than ever to open up this private club bourbon bar. And I'm like, look, man, I'm having my coaching responsibility to him was to not do this. That's how I was like, look, there's a ton of money in that gig. If I just wanted to make fat bank on this guy with a bunch of money, I would have said, let's open that bourbon bar. Let's just go. You can do it. Let's go find the real estate. Let's go find the products. And I was like, dude, you have no business doing this. I'm going to do everything in my power to talk you out. And by the way, I'm going to charge you nothing. Never charged him a dime, set him all up on a path that said, don't do this. And if at the end you ignore all my advice and you still go to do that, you're going to have to find another consultant because I'm not going to have my name pinned to that.
Because I say the same thing to my listeners. My first goal is to talk you out of this.
Yeah.
Like, and if after listening to hundreds of interviews, if you still want to do it,
right,
then maybe you got the chops.
And what ties all that together is that it's part of the humble nature. It's that burning desire to give. Right, she filled an unmet need because she wanted to give the experience, and that's we're starting to come to the idea that of all the things that we discuss in the book, there is kind of one that if you don't have it, you either need to find a partner who does, and don't operate, or forget it.
Yeah, I think that's a good teaser. We're going to take one more quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll be right back to start really unpackaging some of these chapters. And that's one of the chapters is partnerships.
Cool.
So we'll be right back.
We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now, Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no strings attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below.
And we're back.
And we are back.
Let's go.
So let's get into, I mean, we already kind of dissected a lot of the chapters. They just came out organically, but you brought up one chapter that I was hoping we'd be able to talk about today. And this is something that again, like reading this book really helped reinforce some of the things that I felt in my gut. And I was like, you don't hear anybody say this though, so I don't know if I'm right, but this is what I'm feeling. And one of the things I say often, not everybody agrees with me on this, is that I don't think you can open a restaurant and do it by yourself. I don't think you can be the best anymore.
What do you mean? You can't be the best?
I don't think you can be the best if you're the sole proprietor.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? Is it less likely? No.
Here's the. I'm gonna sort of take that in a slightly different direction and then go in your direction. I for the most part I agree. I think there might be some unique individuals out there, right?
Yeah, there's some freaks of nature, but most of us aren't.
But for most of us, so first things first. In this book, we're saying there's these 5 things that these people shared. What we're not saying, and I want to be very clear here, is that if you don't have all 5 of these, you can't be successful. You cannot find some measure of success. That's not what we're saying. We're saying the award winners, the people who are at the 1% of the 1%, they have these 5 things in spades, those helix points. All the other stuff are building blocks. They have bits and pieces here and there. Some are strong in a bunch of them. Some are strong in 1 or 2. When it comes to the helix points, for those who want to get that or maybe even find that award-winning success, there's 2 mechanisms that we found are very very useful for getting there. One is the mentorships, which we're not talking about at this moment, which is fine, but it's a great way to go. It's in a chapter in the book. There's also other stuff out there about it. The other one is the partnerships. And you are going to multiply to a great degree your ability to be successful just off the bat. Forget being award-winning. Let's just start with getting past that 60% failure rate of first 3 years. Finding people who complement your strengths. People who do things that you don't know how to do.
Yeah. The pie is always better when shared. You go further together. There's sayings out there.
Right. People who can have healthy argument and debate with you. people who have a healthy ego with you. This is something I'm pointing at. If you can't see me because you're listening, I'm pointing at my partner Dave, because we actually exemplify a lot. Like, as I was writing and rereading this, I was like, holy crap, we do almost all this to a great degree. You're going to multiply your chances of success, right? Maybe it goes from 60 to 40. It can be a huge chunk. And of all these successful people, almost every person in this book has a partner. And one of my favorite quotes is from Julio Cabrera. He said when he was figuring this out, right? He's going into his 50s, starting his first bar, right? This man designed for 20 years. He did all this stuff. And he started asking, he was getting towards that finish line of, okay, I'm almost ready to go. And he was asking the super successful people he knew, should I get a partner? They, to a person, 100% said, don't do this alone. Number one, simplest, easy answer for that. Why? If you do it by yourself, you're stuck here. Your general manager can leave. They can quit. They can get sick. You don't get to get sick. You have to show up. Somebody says, hey, I'm going on vacation, I don't care what you say. You have to show up. Having a partner splits that, right? They have the golden handcuffs with you. So now I can have some of that freedom. I'm not going to burn out really fast. So right there off the bat, that's a huge multiplier to success. Then again, if you follow these, so there's something we call the Delta construct in here. And it's really what it is. It's an easy way to remember the critical pieces to finding the right partner. Number one, find somebody who is ethically similar to you, morally, right? You shared values, but who also has complements you. Separate set of skills, separate set of knowledge, different than skills. The second piece, make sure you're clear on what that partnership is. Operating agreements, critical. Do not do this without an operating agreement.
Yeah.
Operating agreements, some people are scared of it, right? It's a legal I'm signing a contract. And by the way, I almost forgot. One of the most interesting things we found, that we were shocked, frankly. We were like, no way. And again, every person we ask this question of, make sure they're your friend. It is rare that somebody who's not your friend.
That's something else that I agree with.
That shocked me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, no, it's a partnership.
They say don't go into business with friends and
family.
family. Yeah, if you have shitty friends and family, don't go into business with them. But if you have great friends and family and you trust them because they're good people, right, and you know they're not going to let you down.
That operating agreement. Here's the best example. My brother's a lawyer, and he was explaining to me why it's critical. When he and I were Dave and I were starting up. He said, look, it's not for today. You trust Dave today, and he trusts you, and you know who you are. It's what happens when Dave is crossing the street and a car hits him and he knocks his head on the ground. Now he has a TBI, and he's not the same guy because his personality has been drastically changed. Horrible. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
It's when it happens to me. That's what it's for, right? It's to make all that stuff easy and clear. So,
well, it's also to get clear about who's responsible for what. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you're like, hey, like, I'm good at this, you're good at this, you're going to do this, right? Yeah. Well, let's write that down.
Write it down.
So, like, when you're not doing that, right, I can say later, and now I own your share.
That's right. So that's all in there, in there as well. It's a framework. We are not lawyers. It's not legal advice, but it is good advice. And our number one piece of advice is get a lawyer. The third piece is stay out of each other's way. Yeah. You know what you do well. I know what I do well. Let's let each other do well. We can discuss it. We can debate it. But let me do what I do well. And then the fourth piece, because Delta being 4, the fourth piece is make sure you're checking back regularly. Yeah.
I think I did a whole episode dedicated to partnership agreements, but maybe not. I know it's unique for each partnership agreement. Like, there's no two partnership agreements that are exactly the same.
Right.
So yeah, get a lawyer. I also think
there is no boilerplate.
Not everybody can afford a lawyer, though. Let's be honest. Like, some people, if they're starting like real small pop-up status, you know,
I'd find the budget, man.
Yeah. I think that's the point that I make is if you're spending $1 million, like, if you're going to go get a loan,
set aside a couple thousand.
Work it into the budget.
A couple $1,000 for a decent lawyer to do this. Yeah. If you're spending $1 million, I would say if you can't do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
That is critical. And just to tie all that together, so it's the 4 points. The other way to think about it is this, because this is where we came up with the Delta construct idea. It's like the Delta Force, right? You've got these specialized military forces, and you have a medic, you have a forward observer, and you have a heavy artillery specialist, right? Let's just say it's 3 people. As they're going into battle, they need to know that they can A, trust that person next to them with their life, B, that person's going to do their job, C, they're not going to get in their way, right? So the medic starts deciding, we should not take this route, we should take that route, but they don't have all the maps and information and understanding of terrain that the forward observer has. Now they're making decisions they shouldn't make, and the whole thing goes to hell and people die. I had the responsibility of overseeing and mediating a partnership breakup a couple years back, And one of the main issues was exactly that. Two of the partners didn't write down who was responsible for what. They got in each other's way, and it got ugly, and they had to dissolve. And if it had been written down differently, it might have ended differently. Might not. I don't know. So that's the overall concept and all that. And I think that you're right. I totally agree with you. If you are, it's a lot harder, especially today with the ability to see through businesses with all this technology and transparency created by, and sometimes false transparency created by social media and all that. Having somebody to complement you in that business is the best way to still achieve that star status, that level of success.
I mean, I can't help but think of Uptown Social, recent guest, Charleston-based restaurant. They're
the guys from New York too, right?
Yes, they have a
great
downtown
interview.
social.
Yeah.
So what is it? Eat, play, be merry, or something like that? Is that the
it was
group?
good. Yeah, he's a solid interview.
Yeah. So the way that they run their businesses, they promote from within. Mm-hmm. They find talent, and they know these people are going to go open their own bars. And they say, "We're opening a new spot. It's EBITDA value, like, we've valued it at $1 million. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a partner, like, put up a point, but a point for somebody, working in the bar industry is just within reach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They can go get $10,000 or whatever it is, but now you're weeding out the people who aren't serious.
Right.
You've developed this person. They have your culture. They have your core values. They have your school of thought and operations and how you do stuff. You've pinned them for being good at something, and that next location needs this. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the future. I think it's giving, like, how are you going to attract onto yourself the best people?
I think that's unbelievably smart.
Yeah.
I've been seeing people do that for a very long time, but it is definitely the right way to go.
Well,
100%.
I mean, I think people just don't know how to do it, and that's what happens. Is like this: don't get into partnerships because you'll get screwed if you don't protect yourself, and if you're partnering, if you get the blinders on,
and you're
like, and you're like, I just want to open this place. I need help. Well, this person has money. I'll just take their money, and like, I don't like them. I don't know anything about them. Like. It's just being stupid about it.
Yep. One of your partners has to be financially literate.
Yes.
So yeah, you need a fiscal person. You need it depends on what your focus is. Mm-hmm. Is your focus food? Then you're going to need somebody who's good at that.
Yep.
You're going to need a front of house person. I'd argue today you're going to need marketing. You're going to need somebody whose job it is to promote your business. And I hate that that's true.
Well, no, I don't think so. You shouldn't. You just kind of defined the majority of the partnership at Cafe La Trova. Yeah. That's where their skills lie, and they are dear friends. The one person that was brought in that not all the partners knew was friends with with two of the other partners. I don't want to give names because I don't know how much they'd want people to know this, but was brought in and became friends with everybody because they fit the culture.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful, lovely thing because when you see them together, Dave and I had the opportunity to sit down with quite a few of them a couple months back. It is heartwarming. It's almost comforting to see them together, and that's how they are too. It makes it a lot easier to do if you get it right.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, sorry, I just need to clarify something. Sorry for the legal side. Each person should get their own lawyer. If you have one lawyer for two people, that lawyer has a conflict of interest. Yeah. So each partner needs to have their own person. So I just want to
good advice.
Stick that little.
I can't believe we took a couple breaks, but we're at about an hour and a half of recording time. It goes by so fast.
Yeah.
Anything we didn't discuss? I mean, I'm just going to go through the chapters real quick. So the chapters are basically areas of, what would you say? How would you describe the chapters?
Competency or no?
Well, those are your building blocks, or your superpower traits is sort of what you're getting out of there, like individual unique talents that really drive success.
Yeah. So we covered the helix.
Yeah.
These are the chapters. We don't have to go through.
These are things that build to the helix.
Yeah. So their knowledge, professional development, clarity, branding, immersion, details, training, execution, community, the power of giving, information systems, discipline, scaling, mentorship, partnership. And I think that's...
May I say it really quick?
Yeah. Well, you didn't bring your own?
I did. It's all the way over there. I'm not getting up. So the first... I just want to make sure I have this right. I would say the first 13. Yeah, the first 13 are the building blocks. And then 14 and 15, mentorship and partnerships, are how to supplement if you're weak in any one of these.
Got it.
If you're weak in any one of those. So that's kind of how it reads.
Got it.
And they all lead into each other. Some of the chapters you see, there's a very nice flow.
I see that.
From the details to the immersion to all like it just flows
So
one right into the other.
Which chapter haven't we discussed that you think should be a part? Like, or in the next two, I'll let you guys pick.
We were going to talk about. We had a break when we were talking about the Inception archetype, which
Yes,
was maybe
that's
my
right, we never
favorite
came back.
discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Geeks
think
out
this
on
is.
this.
Look, I think this is a real. Man, if I'm wrong on this,
Which chapter
You're
is
not.
that?
that's in. It's in branding.
Yeah.
So branding and marketing is new to a lot of people. We were just we were on another podcast recently, and they asked about the power of social media and such. And I said, look, we have unprecedented access to our markets via social media, but we sort of we have professional level access, and unfortunately, oftentimes what folks are doing is they're finding someone in the business that has the best social media account, has the best Instagram account, and says, hey, let's go post some cool pics of food and drinks, and let's tell people what we're doing on Fridays and hope that they come. And that seems like a pretty good marketing exercise. And a lot of people do that. I want to get this right. This is neat. So as we're having the conversation with Dave Kaplan from Death & Co., and he was talking about branding and the importance of hospitality, and part of what he wants to do is his goal is to create his goal is to create a holy shit moment for everyone that comes in every time they come in, which is just an unbelievably
Lofty
high goal,
yeah.
right? But Dave doesn't shy away from it. Like he's not like, oh, I don't know how we're going to do that. So, all right. So I'm fascinated by that comment. So I'm like, well, Dave, tell me more. Your venue, the outside, what would you say, facade is just black. And it's
awning.
your name of the place is Death & Co. And it doesn't look warm and inviting, and when I come up, but reconcile that for me. I was having a hard time reconciling that for me. So let's pause for a second. I'd say, if I were to ask you without any lead up, when would you say the typical guest experience begins?
Today?
What would you say?
When you Google search, am I like
Could be,
whatever
yeah,
you're
it's-
in the mood
That's a
for?
good answer. That's a good
Yeah.
answer. I think like last night we asked some world-class operators, when does the guest experience begin? And for the most part, people will give you two answers: the parking lot
Yeah.
or the host stand.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that would
that
have been
fair?
the answer like 15. I think that is the answer, but like today, I think that because you're to the point you made, you have unprecedented reach.
Yeah.
That like it starts like before they ever come to you.
Right.
But
So,
yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
right. So you're getting there. You're getting
Yeah.
there. Now, this isn't our idea. This is all learning for us. So Dave says, well, the front of the building's just a gateway. I was like, all right, go on. Tell me more.
Yeah.
He goes, the guest experience begins when someone first conceives of coming to the venue. And I went, holy shit. Right? That's my Dave. I said, you just gave me a holy shit moment.
Yeah.
And I was like, tell me
job,
more.
Dave.
And he's like, look, if you think about, if you make it analogous to, say, Disney or a movie, if you're going to Disneyland, when does the experience begin? Not when you show up in the parking lot at Disney. It's the 3-month buildup you have.
tell your kids, we're
all
going
the
to Disney
things that
World.
you're
Yeah.
excited about. Okay. You get the idea. Movies do trailers for this reason, right? They
Years
give you
advance.
trailers and they prime you for that experience, and you get all excited for the new
And
Avengers
authors get
movie.
on podcasts.
Yes, right. We're priming. Yeah, we're doing that. So this was so neat, guys. I hope this lands. We're actually building a whole supplemental training program on this, courseware online for this, and culture and a few other things. It's so meaningful. We did a little circle. So after this, we did a thought experiment. We said, let's just look at this from a time investment perspective on a visit. And how long is a typical visit? If I said to you, hey, what's a typical guest time spent in a venue? What might you, there's no wrong answer. Just what do you think it might be?
Hour and a half.
Okay, that's great. Hour and a half, fair. I would say that's good. So hour and a half. Let's think about the entirety of the guest experience now. You and I decide we're gonna meet in Raleigh, and let's go to the Merchant where
Two
we
weeks
are right
ago,
now.
we decided.
2 weeks ago. So you've been thinking about being
Has
here.
it been 2 weeks?
Yeah,
It's
it's
2
2
weeks ago.
weeks.
2 weeks
Yeah.
ago.
So let's meet here, and let's just say we weren't doing this. We're meeting up as friends, and we're gonna have some cocktails. It's a little better
Which we
told.
did.
Which we did. We're planning in advance. What am I going to wear? If you're going out with the wife or significant other, I've been married like 32 years. She's inviting other friends to make it interesting. She's investing a lot more time in inviting people. What clothes am I going to wear? I'm looking forward to this. Do I need to save some money? Do I need to get some cash?
Go to the salon.
What am I looking forward to drinking? The day comes, I call friends. Maybe I get a haircut. What am I going to wear? Get a shower. Plan for an Uber. Think about everything that just went into this experience. Far exceeds the hour and a half that you're going to be in the venue, right? So the buildup for this is immense.
Yeah.
Now we skip to, so that's the inception archetype. And then we do some branding work on top of that. Do you know who your ideal guest is? And you should have an ideal guest. Some people in hospitality may debate, well, every guest is ideal. It's not how it works. But we're not going to digress there. But we do more branding work as it relates to the marketing bit. The culture piece is really cool. The way you play off this now as a culture is, let's say I'm the host or hostess or the waiter or the bartender. If you come to me and you're talking to me culturally about, we want to give a really great experience for people when they get here. Give me all that. We want to smile. We want to say please and thank you. We want to serve and we want to give. And I say, okay, I got that. I'm an 18 or 19-year-old host. Say, yeah, I hear you,
I can
Eric.
smile.
That's great. And Eric comes through the door. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. That's great. And I'm just basically transacting in a steps of service kind of way. And they can be great steps of service, all fair play. However, if I say to you and the staff, people who come here have typically, on average, not just walked by and decided to walk in. They were thinking about coming here on Monday, and now it's Friday. They've been planning on this for 4 or 5 days. It's more likely than not that this is the only time they're going to go out this week. This is their only spend. It's more likely than not that they're probably going to spend a little bit more money than they intended to or have to spend while they're here. That's just typical. They're probably going to go get their hair done. They're probably going to invite friends. This is the highlight of their week, and when they walk through that door, you're the first face they're going to see. How do you show up? I show up differently. Fundamentally different, given that explanation of the setup of my job as a host or hostess versus saying, smile, you've now given your host or hostess a real meaningful purpose. I am really important in this steps of service. My responsibility is huge. And if we have a whole staff oriented with the mindset of, that's who these folks are. These are folks that have been planning and thinking and spending and looking forward to. It's a massive cultural shift in how we think about the business. That then, if it all plays out right, which it has for these, this is a study of excellence, this is then turned into an army of advocates. You come in and I give you that experience. I give you the holy shit every time I come in. This is the only place I really want to go because I know I can count on it when I come here. I know my $100 I'm going to spend tonight is good. I'm guaranteed. And I don't know that I want to experiment. Why would I? So then it sort of recession-proofs your business. And not that a lot of the folks we talk to are not like competitive against other bars in nature. They tend to be a community and they tend to want to share. However, it does sort of give you barriers to entry for other people. They're going to have a hard time taking your customer base away. Yeah. So you're developing advocates, you're recession-proofing the business, your marketing, your army of advocates becomes this authentic marketing arm when other people are saying, look how great we are. It's not me telling you how great we are, but it's other people. There's depth to that, and there's a lot of coaching out that has to be done there. But I continue to be fascinated by the idea of the mindset. It's a mindset idea. There's also marketing involved in that too. Yeah. Like how do I identify the right person and market to that? So,
well, I mean, I think another crazy thing that I've learned is that it's a lot to do with psychographics. It's a lot to do with what does that person want to communicate to the world when they're in my restaurant. And I hate that that's true too, but we want to be seen a certain way. We care about how people interpret who we are. So if our brand clearly spells out, I'm thinking of a health and fitness brand, like a smoothie brand, right? And like if your brand is all around wellness and doing good for your body and like exercise, and you want people to think that you're a healthy person that exercises and does good, like you want people to know that you're going there. You want to be seen there because it communicates that it helps you feed your ego.
Your personal brand. You
Yeah,
build a personal
yeah.
brand on social
Do you want to
media,
be associated
basically.
with this?
Exactly.
And it's funny that as you're saying this, it occurred to me, the people who sort of are getting this right, whether or not they're intending to do the inception piece, you can tell a complete difference. When, just as one example, when my wife and I get ready to go to Cafe La Trova, it's that. She's getting her hair done. She's going to spend 2 hours at the salon. She's going to make sure everything looks perfect. She's going to get the right dress. She's going to spend hours preparing. It's going to be a week-long event. There are plenty of other places we go to where it's like, oh, hey, do you want to go to this place tomorrow? Yeah, sure. And we show up. And it's almost, you're almost naturally identifying it. And for the hospitality owner, for the restaurant owner, if they can pick up on how to be one versus the other, doing this process, doing this program, which Dave has created an amazing deck with a set of instructions on how to do this step by step, that'll put them on a different level. These are the people that thrive during COVID. These are the people that they still had their tough time. They still had to bust their ass. They still had to get those grants and loans and all that crap, the PPP. But they still thrived at a time when other places were by the hundreds, by the thousands shutting down.
Right.
Well, you have an army of advocates that say, man, I don't want to lose my bar.
Right.
I don't want you to go
Not my
away.
job, not my job, my bar.
My bar, right. And I'll spend the money. I'll pay extra. What do I need to do to keep you
My
around?
community.
You're my community. Absolutely right.
Yeah. I've loved this conversation, guys. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on, another chapter that you were hoping would come to the surface?
Well, there is one, if I may.
Yeah, please go ahead.
There's one on information systems,
Yes.
which is a misnomer because it sounds like it's about data and all this stuff, which is a bit, but it really isn't.
With systems that provide data.
So, no.
Okay.
Exactly. That's why I want to. So what that chapter is really about, and it's one that excites me, and he's gotten me more excited. I wrote it, and he makes me more excited about it, which is really fun. That's it. The partnership works. I'm pointing at Dave again for the listeners. It's about productivity, right? It's 100% entirely about productivity, and I'll keep this tight because I know we're towards the end, and I can. So what it's about, it is about using data, but it's about taking data, turning it into information, and then making sure that information is actionable. We take action on that information. So data to information to action. In any given business period, but let's, with our audience, the restaurants, there are things that we are struggling with, that we're not doing well with. It might be turnover, which is a very common one because it's something we don't look at as much as we should. It could be with our guest interactions, with number of people coming back, the repeat guests, and how do we affect that. It could be as simple as cost of goods, right? That's our basic simple example, which is where I'm going to focus on more. The way you can use, and if you're not comfortable with data and technology, it doesn't matter, because a lot of this comes down to human process anyways. And the beauty is, as we've been talking about tech, and this is where the technology comes in, because it's not as much a technology conversation as is a productivity, as I said. Technology makes this whole process easier. It's doing stuff for us that we used to have to do by hand.
That's how I tell people to look at technology. It's a system that somebody else created that's way better than you could ever do on your own.
Dude,
so just plug it in.
I love Excel. Excel is not the way. So what happens is, if you get this right, you sit down with your team. There's a great story about Gaurav Patel, G. Patel, in the book, and how he did this and what he accomplished. Like, the dude is more productive than, God, he's definitely than me, but most people I've met. You sit down, you determine where the issue lies. You then look at what data you have at your fingertips to get it. You maybe source out and say, hey, let's go find the places that we can get this data from, turn that into the right information, and hopefully that same tool turns it into information. Big difference between data and information, not to be confused. Data is the raw numbers coming through, almost unusable, especially in large quantities, right? So it's not something you can really action on. You turn that into information, which classically is the dashboard, the ubiquitous dashboard. When I started doing this 20 years ago, there were dashboards up in whiteboards, right? They would have here's our previous week revenue, here's our goal for this week, and then they write down did they hit their target, right? So dashboards have been around forever. Again, the technology are making those easier to use and better to work with. Red, yellow, green stuff, and how am I trending and whatnot. So once we have that information, we can then take action on it. We should have a process around that with the team to take action.
Weekly meeting or whatever.
Weekly meeting, monthly meeting, what's your frequency? And you have to figure that out. So the key pieces to this are, number one, you have to be able to trust the data and information, right? So make sure you're getting the right data and information to use, and then make sure that it's accurate. That's something I deal with a lot with my clients, and a lot of why I start working with people in the inventory control side and the supply chain management side. And then finally, is the process you're using to take action on that information correct? So you do a couple meetings, see if you're getting to a point. It should be 5 to 10 minute conversations. Okay, our cost of goods are up. Do we know why? No. Okay, John, your job to go figure this out. And that's the last piece. As the owner, you have to become comfortable with giving this away to somebody else. Maybe build it at first, but you have to be comfortable with saying, okay, bar manager, this is going to be yours.
Yeah.
Now, don't worry, you're going to make mistakes, and we're going to coach you through that, and you have to be comfortable with the fact that they will make mistakes. You get that right, you do it once, right? You're now starting to spin the propeller. We call it the propeller effect. It's about getting momentum in the business. You do it with your next piece. What's your next opportunity in the business, right? It's all about these opportunities. So my next one is, right, we're working on cost of goods. We have a handle out. We know we're going the right direction. John, you've got it here. Bob, you got it over there. Julie, you're going to get the labor side. Next, we're going to work on turnover. Our payroll companies, ADP, Paychecks, they all calculate this for you. If you're using one of these companies, they do it for you. And this is one of the most valuable pieces of information you could possibly have. Turnover, go look online. I won't bore you with the details. It is insanely expensive. So now we start doing that one. The propeller's spinning faster, and you get the next one. And you're building these systems to be, again, actionable. You have to be able to action on this. It's a critical piece in 5 to 10 minute chunks, maybe a half an hour when something goes really wrong. And then you're just becoming more and more productive.
Yeah. You perfectly just spelled out why I love. Have you guys ever heard of Traction, EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System? So it's a series of books out there called Traction, and it's basically they talk about it's basically systems for communication, systems for constantly challenging yourself, systems for growth, systems for getting and tracking data, scorecards. This is what they call them. They call them rocks. Rocks are, okay, like here's your quarterly rock. Like you want to be here. How do you reverse engineer going from where we are to there over the next 3 months? And every week we talk about the progress you made and why you didn't meet your goal. Why not? Let's brainstorm the solution. Right. But they call it a level 10 meeting. But everything that you just discussed, they force into that level 10 meeting. And there's quarterly meetings and annual meetings. Yep. But the level 10 is weekly, and that's keeping people on track to building that momentum that you're talking about, the propeller. And in this industry, it's not even easy. It is natural to get stuck in the day-to-day. Our business requires it almost of us. I open my door and I'm expecting to do something important to work on my business, but a 20 top shows up. Now I got to work in the business again. If we don't set this aside and make it sacred, this must happen. It cannot be missed. We're going to miss out on that productivity. And once you get it right, that productivity is going to allow you to do way more than anybody else. It's worth the time spent, 100%. And that is chapter, I should know, 11. 11. I was going to say 10. I was going to say 10. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much. I knew when I first spoke to you, David Domzalski, about the bar shift, I knew you were great in that episode. I knew with all the way you talk about Dave Nitzel, that if I could get you guys back on the show together to go into the hospitality DNA, you would not disappoint, and you have not disappointed. So thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. And before we say goodbye, I give my chance for my guests to call somebody out. That's how I find my future guests. This is my research. Success recognizes success. You already called some folks out. I did. Well, we already have some folks that we're going to... I want to talk to everybody you guys introduced.
Look, that's everyone in the book, and then look, and we've lined some up for you already.
Yeah. Drop some of those names from your real quick.
Well, so you got some neat ones coming up soon. So you've got Gary Crunkleton coming up. Yep. Gary is I don't know anyone smarter about bourbon than Gary. They're probably out there, but I don't know who they are. Gary, make sure and Gary, I don't know what Gary might say. Gary is a free spirit, so buckle up for that. That'll be fun. I can't wait to listen. And one thing he does is he gets antique spirits. So if you go to the Crunkleton, he's got a couple places, Chapel Hill, Charlotte. He's got spirits from 1895. Damn. And he can look. Gary's the real deal, man. And oh my gosh, I can't say enough about him. He's the guy I send people from out of state to visit him. Yep. And I don't give them a heads up. That's how good Gary is I send people on a weekend vacation just to go visit his venue, and I never call Gary or say anything to anyone. Last night, you're gonna meet John Sealbinder. John is
Sharp
here.
dude.
Thank you, John, for letting us use your
Yes,
space.
for sure.
Good dude.
And John
Sharp dude.
John had this guy. This guy was Air Force Academy guy. He was going to be a fighter pilot. Ended up liking bartending more. Has nightclubs, cocktail bars, a brewery, a hotel, a taqueria,
This
a
cocktail bar
pub,
we're sitting in.
an English pub. Unbelievable. And then you're gonna meet Drew and Kevin from Dram and Draft. Those
You have
guys,
6 locations.
7 now,
7?
and they opened up 5 since COVID.
In 18
So
months.
so again, and John's bought or started, the hotel. These people are all multiplying post COVID. They're all in the book. So
There's
it's
so much opportunity. It's like a fire. It goes through and it burns things down, and then there's room for growth.
So look, if you want to do some special stuff in your business, don't take our word for it. Take the folks we wrote about. They will show you the way.
Yep.
They do it with a big heart and a huge willingness to share.
Yep.
And we got Will Rowley,
Yeah, we got Will.
schedule fly,
Standing off microphone.
past guest on the show, who's based here in Raleigh. So we're going to be reconnecting with him as well. So I got my work cut out for me, but it's going to be great. I can't wait.
I haven't met a more genuine, humble person in the support side of hospitality than Will.
Yeah.
He has an incredible product and an amazing story. Look, this is just cool, man. Like, I'm a little jealous of what you get to do. We got
I'm
to
jealous
do
of
this.
what I get to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sometimes I
You
got to
get to
stop
do
and be
all
like, what's my
This
life?
is my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And if you want to connect with anyone in the book that we haven't already,
yeah.
you just send me a note, and I'll do my best. I can't promise anything, but
Right.
I certainly, of course,
Actually,
will put in a good
I
word.
will say they will all say yes. I'll promise it because they are
Oh
so
boy!
awesome.
You heard it
boy!
here.
Look at this.
So-
If they say no, I'll just tell
Every
them
one
to
of them
listen to
said,
this.
"Hey, if you want to talk again, let me know. I'm
Time
open. I'm
stamp it.
available."
Dave's huge.
1
on
hour,
overcommitting.
51 minutes in. Dave says it. Guys, thank you so much. And I got to make sure I leave you an opportunity to let the listeners know, how can we connect?
Our book is available on Amazon in paperback, hardback, Kindle, and audiobook. We got a phenomenal reader. He's got a great voice and says all the words right. You can also go to daveanddave.co. That's daveanddave.co, not a mistake. No M. And that's where you're going to find extra resources and materials. So those are the 2 best places. Of course, we're on Instagram and Facebook. I don't know what all those little hashtaggy thingies are and the ads. I'm too old for that, man. But I'm working on it.
This is episode 1009. Head over to restaurantstoppable.com/1009. We'll have a summary of today's discussion as well as links to the book and any other tools or services recommended on today's show, if there were any. I don't think there were. Maybe EOS. I don't know. Guys, there is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Thanks,
Cheers.
man.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.